Welcome to Development Book Club. Today we are covering Dharma Punx by Noah Levine. And it's a bit of a different book from the other ones we've been doing in that it's a memoir and it's not a formal, let's say, nonfiction text about Buddhism. This is Noah's story from taking him from being a punk kid, really young skater, moving back and forth between Santa Cruz and New Mexico because his parents had broken up, and his dad is actually like a really famous meditation teacher who's written many books and everything, and his struggles through really intense drug addiction, and homelessness, legal problems and theft, and all of that through his travels, sobriety, and ultimately becoming a Dharma teacher. And I wanted to share a few passages from the book to sort of take you through his journey, just very briefly. First one is from when he's really young, 5 years old. This is from chapter 2, Kids of the Black Hole. He says, "Sitting on the front steps, I could hear the cries of my new little brother and sister and the sound of my mom and new stepdad arguing as usual. They met at a meditation retreat about a year earlier. He moved in with us and nothing had been the same ever since. Making sure that no one else was around, I crawled underneath the porch and went to the place where I had hidden the steak knife I stole from the kitchen. Sunlight came through the spaces between the redwood boards, illuminating the earth in horizontal lines and giving off enough light to see clearly. I made my way to my secret hiding place. My heart was beating quickly, and I was filled with fear of being discovered. I had hidden the knife at the foot of the stairs where only I could get to it. I'd buried it in the loose dirt down there a few days earlier. For a moment, I couldn't find it, and I was afraid someone had discovered it, maybe my big sister Tara. As I frantically dug around, I finally found it. The heavy metal handle felt cool and somewhat comforting to my touch. I cleaned the dirt off, wiping the blade carefully on my hang ten shorts. For a few moments, I just sat there looking at my knife. It was one of my favorites. Mom had 4 of them. I think they used to belong to Grandma. The blades were shiny and very sharp. We only got to use them when we were having meat, usually liver and onions or something gross like that. The handles were made of metal, but fashioned to look like some sort of stone or maybe wood. I had always liked these knives a lot, which was why I had chosen to bring one down to my hideout. The blade caught the rays of sun and threw a reflection across the ground in front of me. I played with the light in this way, amazed at how I could shine light into the darkness with my knife. Then, as I heard some more screams coming from the house, my mom yelling at her new husband and the twins crying, I remembered why I had stolen it in the first place. I turned the blade toward my stomach, gripping the handle with both hands, and sat there shaking, filled with a deep sense of desperation. With trembling hands, I contemplated plunging it into my stomach, thinking that I would just instantly die like they do in the cartoons and in the movies. But I stopped. Somehow, just having the knife was enough. Just knowing that I had the option, that I could always get out of this life if I needed to. Even at 5 years old, I had the sense that if I were to die, it would not be the end, but just a new beginning. Just a transition to the next level of existence or life. 5 years old. This is page 6. So it starts a bit intense, and it's not something we've really covered in any of the other books. I want to hop ahead towards when Noah's a little bit older. And this is one time when he's spending time back and forth, and he's in New Mexico at this point. He said, a few weeks later, on my visit to my folks in New Mexico, this is with his dad and stepmom, I was smoking some cocaine that is, with this crazy Mexican hippie named Wildman Mike. He told me that smoking this shit was a waste of time, and that we should have really mainlined it. I had never injected drugs before, but it was beginning to sound like a good idea. He told me that we could score some rigs at the pet store. Quote, just tell them your dog is diabetic, unquote, he said. I was too scared to do it, but I paid him $10 to give me a couple bags of needles the day before I went home, back to Santa Cruz. Many things happen. He meets many friends. A lot of people die and go to jail. He ends up becoming sober, does a lot of work with doing long runs of celibacy, struggling through relationships with girlfriends and with his first meditation teacher had a really sort of poor boundaries and threw him off for a bit. many stints in jail, juvenile hall before that, and then jail, and then at the very end, spoiler, like he's a Dharma teacher now himself. And towards the end of the book, there's a chapter called Stay Free, which begins like this. It says, going back into the same juvenile hall where I had begun my meditation practice so many years earlier was an incredible experience of my life, having come full circle. As we walked into the gates of Santa Cruz County Juvenile Hall, I was feeling kind of nervous, yet very confident. Memories of being handcuffed in the back of cop cars and all the court dates, probation officers, and piss tests of my youth flashed through my mind. Tim, the same guy who had worked there when I was a kid, greeted me. He helped me set up the classes and was very pleased to see me. I was happy to see him, and it felt good to be back there with something to offer other than insults. Tim walked me back to the unit, and about 40 young faces looked up to check me out as I entered the rec room. And the classes that he mentioned setting up where he ends up teaching meditation to kids in juvenile hall. And he had a lot of really cool opportunities through his father, who was a Dharma teacher himself, to meet people like Jack Kornfield and do lots of long meditation retreats and everything. Not what I was expecting really from the book, but it was cool, just sort of someone who grew up into punk music. He was on a much deeper level where he ended up working at punk clubs in Santa Cruz as a kid and went out handing out flyers to be able to get into the shows for free. Ended up taking acid at these shows and wearing a Minor Threat shirt. For those of you who knew Minor Threat, a weird shirt to wear while taking acid and drinking. We'll see you next time.